So first and foremost, tell me your name, your role, and what you're doing at Dronestitute.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's George Fimmer. I'm fortunate to be the CEO for Dronestitute Incorporated, a nice little team of tech nerds that have come together to serve the roofing and property assessment, as well as the roofing insurance industries.
And George, tell us how you got into the drone industry.
So I've been flying for quite some time, a little over 7 years. Originally, I was doing real estate photos and videos a long time ago just to make a little bit of extra money in college. It started as I just enjoy doing this. Here's an easy little way for me to learn business, learn how to price a product, learn how to put myself in the market. And it really, really snowballed from there. I've always had an eye for education and training. So I developed a Part 107 course while I was in college, about 7.5 hours of video instruction. So I could teach people how to get their drone license. And over the course of time, I was brought into different scenarios and settings to do proof of concepts and build out drone teams. So high-end drone teams within refineries, Department of Defense, and other entities and organizations. I got brought out to do heavy proof of concepts after building a drone team. Like they all want to tackle the big hard challenges. They would say, George, can you come and solve this for us? So you do that enough times, you figure out some really cool niche use cases.
And just like we're talking about today. All right, George. So the challenges and pain points, we're looking, what challenges or pain points did you face with the previous solutions before Trinity Pro and the P5?
Never enough
So help,
resolution.
never enough resolution. It sounds like that's a specific problem, so that's great. And then how did these challenges affect, like on the back end or in the field, the collection wise? How did these affect your workflow, your efficiency, and data accuracies that you told us before?
Absolutely. So we can never have the best of both worlds, right? Never enough resolution is the problem. And then at the same time, the ability to map that kind of or gather that kind of resolution at scale. So first off, you've got to be able to get the type of resolution needed for the damage detection we're looking for. So there's a lot of inefficiencies on both the insurance carrier side as well as the roofing contractor side. Roofing contractors are aggravating a lot of homeowners who aren't qualified for insurance claims for replacing their roofs only because they don't know what kind of damage is up there before they knock on a door. Often they might see a few missing shingles from the front slope, but that still doesn't tell the full story of what's taking place on a roof. So roofing contractors lacked a lot of efficiency. They'll drive through neighborhoods looking for opportunities, looking for homeowners in need of help. But the funny thing is, that's what the business is based around and based off of. So most of the underserved people, the homeowners who are oftentimes looking at their phone, are so distracted when they get to the house, the last thing on their mind is their roof. They have no idea the damage in the valleys, on the back slopes, the areas that are just outside of sight. And the contractors who are driving by the roadways just doing everything in their power to find them would never have access to the kind of technology that would even allow them to see those things. Aerial imagery isn't new, but using imagery from planes and even other high resolution imagery sources, you still don't have the resolution needed to even begin doing damage detection, as we found when we started doing our research and development. So roofing contractors, very inefficient. Then on the property and casualty and insurance carrier side, these guys are having to dispatch insurance adjusters en masse to respond and be reactive rather than proactive. So on the reactive side of things, you've got to get whoever you can to go and walk this roof. There's a lot of liability and risk involved. And a lot of times those adjusters have 7 or 8 claims that they have to go and run to in a day. There's no way for them to adequately and appropriately collect the level of documentation and data needed to tell of the full scope of the damages across a roofing system. They'll do their best, but I don't fault a guy for not wanting to climb a really, really steep roof when he's got 8 others to do that day and he wants to go home safely to his family. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's a lot of the tete-a-tete that you get with the industry. So now using this system, using the quantum systems, we've been able to step in the middle and be that third party that's really needed to help both sides play fairly with each other by collecting objective, actionable data that tells the full story of the roofing system at large.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Moving on, I'm knocking this out quite a bit here. So, George, we're wanting, how does our product, so Trinity Pro and the P5, address your challenges and improve these workflows that you've just stated compared to these previous methods?
Getting the resolution was the first challenge that we were facing. And originally we were using a Mavic 3 Enterprise because it's scalable. It's in the right price point for a lot of contractors that are just R&D. They're trying this technology out, they don't want to invest too much into it until they know for sure that if it works or not. So you have a lot of limitations with a 20 megapixel camera flying over a neighborhood. So often you have to get lower and tighter to these rooftops, which there's a lot more danger involved with power lines, with cell towers, with even just disturbing the populace or the public. If you're flying 80 to 110 feet at 25 miles an hour, I mean, you're usually in and out before somebody notices, but at the end of the day, too, it's still too close for my comfort personally. My goal is that it's as unintrusive as possible for the homeowners. No one has any idea of the data that's being collected. They only get to be beneficiaries of it. So it doesn't disturb them in their day-to-day life, but hopefully it can help save them from fraudulent contractors or insurance carriers on both sides of the fence. So we're trying to help everybody be accountable. So using the quantum systems, we've been able to prove that we collect significantly better data at 300 feet than we could ever dream of at 80 to 110 feet. Then you've got the other question about sensor size. So if you compare the size of the sensor off of the Mavic 3 Enterprise, like GSD is good, ground sampling distance is good, but it's not the only telling figure. If I have the same exact ground sampling distance with a smaller sensor size as I do with this medium format that we're getting off of the P5, it's a totally different world altogether. You will have significantly better quality even if the ground sampling distance is the same value. And I'll go ahead and share my screen just real fast to show you.
That's exactly what I was going to have you do, George. Like, as far as like, can you help us describe the impact of, in terms of accuracy, efficiency, and then most importantly here, data quality?
Absolutely. So this is 110 feet. This is a photo during a canvassing mission over a neighborhood, photogrammetric practices. So we're going to punch in, we're going to zoom in. Obviously, this is no bueno. We got missing shingles just hanging on the side slope right here. Not good.
See that?
I'm going to go ahead and drag this box right here. I know cursor's kind of blocking it, but you're looking at 15 or 14 by 12 right here. Overall pixels for a missing shingle.
Okay.
Now there's perception, identification, and detection. There's multiple levels to identifying objects, and this is on the lower end right now. We don't have enough, like it's good, right? I can tell there's a discernible difference right here. Of course, the more the merrier, the better for me to make accurate decisions. 15 by 12 is cool. It does the job for now, but I'm going to switch over to the image that we captured, one of those from the Quantum Systems flight. Same thing here, right? So this was 300 feet. The previous image was 110 feet. Now, as we punch in and as we dive in, you can already tell and you can already see a significant, massive difference in image quality. And as we zoom in even further, like for example, this hail hit right here on the corner, this edge of the shingle here.
That's that dark spot you're referring to, George, correct? That we're seeing?
That's exactly correct. Yes, sir. So this spatter right here, or all of these different splotches that you're seeing, we chose this area for the test sample. We validated it with Canopy Weather ahead of time, very reputable data collector on the weather side for insurance carriers. We knew that there was 2-inch hail that hit 3 months before this data was captured. So this is the perfect kind of use case where right after a hailstorm comes through, contractors are in a frenzy to go and capture all the leads they possibly can, knock on all the doors they possibly can, and insurance carriers have to send their adjusters out en masse to try and collect data. And I love the intent and the approach behind this, but at the same time, the carriers are never going to be able to get this kind of data collection, this level of data collection, or documented, or even put down into accurate reports to then pass along to make an adequate decision from. Right here, we're able to do this at scale, and at the same time, I know it's a little bit harder to see because the cursor is blocking it, but you're looking at 12 by 8, and if I give a little more accurate, 7, you're looking at like 14 by 12 or so. So if you remember, this is the same thing that we were just looking at for the missing shingle. We had 14 or 13 by 12 for a full missing shingle, which is significantly higher, significantly larger surface area than an individual hail hit that's just 1.5 to 1.75 inches across, because the strike into the shingle is always different. It's always a little bit smaller than the size of the stone that actually hits the roof. So a hail hit, we have the same amount of pixels on a hail hit as we did with the competitor across a full missing shingle. It's that right there is pretty telling.
Because how big is a shingle on this view right here? They seem to be a little bit longer than wider there.
Absolutely. And I know it's not exactly the same rectangular
but still
you're looking at probably 66 by, call it 30, which is much, much larger. You're looking at 4 times the size of what we were looking at. And by the way, too, this is a 3-tab, not even an architectural shingle. So we're doing really, really good here.
And help me, architectural shingle versus this shingle, what do you mean by that? What's the difference?
Architectural shingles are what you're seeing right here, these individual tabs. Yep. So the individual tabs, like you'll find right here, they're a little bit smaller. It's harder to detect damages on these. So we had to fly really, really low using the Mavic 3 Enterprise to find any kind of damage on these. The 3-tab is what you would call these. They're both technically asphalt shingles. You've got architectural and 3-tab right here. The 3-tabs are a little bit larger. They don't stand up to wind nearly as well as architectural shingles will. So you're going to find a lot of places throughout the country, especially on the Gulf Coast, these are just phased out in general. They're just not really meant to handle those kinds of conditions. Now, of course, this was in Denver, so it can hold up a little bit better out here.
what do you see this doing on the commercial side? What we've been looking at is residential, but I know you said, you guys are maybe looking to tackle the commercial side of it as well.
Yep, without a shadow of a doubt. You're right. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the full map. So just to show you here, this is the product that we generate. This is the
Oh
roofing
yeah,
leak.
tell us about this, George. Let us
Yeah, and we're
understand.
going to dive in. So I'll just wanted to preface the map that we're looking at so you guys understand what we're seeing here, and then I'll dive over into the commercial side, which is rather exciting. So we rate these damages. We sat down with public adjusters, independent adjusters, guys that work on the insurance carrier side of things, because even if roofing contractors do have a good understanding of this, they're still playing within the confines and the rules and the boundaries that are set by insurance carriers. So the better we tailor the system so that if a lead goes across an adjuster's desk, a desk adjuster, they can look at this documentation and say, wow, this is in line with the way that we document data and the way that we make decisions. You've checked all the boxes for what's needed for me to approve this or to deny this. That's what we're here to do. That's what we're supposed to do. And that's what we're helping contractors validate ahead of time. So like, for example, on any of these green roofs, you shouldn't see enough damage. We would be telling a contractor, this roof does not need your help right now. You can leave this one be, they're okay. And oftentimes roofing contractors, I get this, like it's difficult when you're out there door knocking. There's only so many doors that you can get to, and they don't have objective data to tell them where to go to. So sometimes at the end of a long day, if they get on a roof that, doesn't have as much damage as they know maybe should go to a carrier, sometimes it still gets across a carrier's desk. And that also causes some of this frustration in which a carrier will say, there's not enough documentation here. There's not enough damage here for me to really warrant replacing this roof. But both guys are just trying to survive. So
Okay.
it doesn't need to be done that way anymore. Now to get over here to the commercial side, the level of detail and documentation we're able to provide as visuals are concerned, it's significant. I can tell you where every single patch is across this roof. In some cases, it's a lot harder to tell, but in some cases, we're even able to show where rippling is taking place, as well as where certain seams or certain welds weren't done properly, and some of them are flapping or peeling or backing up, which is obviously really, really important for us. If we can find something like that, we know that there is a high likelihood or there's a probability that this has been compromised. So if I can see that there might be some break in the seam or break in the weld, it's likely that the rest of this is compromised. And if I were to fly a thermal drone over this area, I'm probably going to find some form of water intrusion or some kind of failure at this point. That's the goal at all points in time, is to find it. It's significantly harder here because we're looking for finite granule things as opposed to a full missing shingle or other kind of deprecation across a roof. Here, the silent killer is water, and there's no way for us to see a missing patch that's just completely torn off. We're looking for breaks and welds that are fitted right over each other, or some kind of miniature puncture that might even be the size of a pinhole.
Awesome. And the color distinguishing, call it acts, if there are any on this, George. So we have like a purple line to a blue line, like, and then I see, like, is it what distinguishes those two from one another?
Right, and just to let you know too, this is using the annotation classes that we have for residential. We have to
Ah,
create it. We have to create a new one for commercial in particular. So like you'll see when I pull this up, it says crease shingles. That's definitely not the case, nor replace shingles. But you can tell that there was patching done to this area already,
yeah.
which this signifies to us, oh wow, they know there's a problem here. They've already tried to correct the problem here. It looks like they weren't able to correct the full scope of the problem. And if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and open up another map, which will highlight this for you.
Let's do it.
Uh,
Because another thing too with your software here, George, tell us about, like the AI stuff. So feeding this type of imagery, from the P5 sensor compared to this, the Mavic, which nothing against it, but I don't know, this motto I've heard from folks, you feed good stuff in, you get good stuff out. And so
That is exactly correct. So I'll show you this, and I'm going to dive into that topic right there. So you see these patches that have been done again and again, over and over on top of each other. And we've still got significant moisture intrusion in each of these areas where there's already been some form of patch, some attempt to solve the problem. What this tells me is it's nearly impossible, as commercial contractors will often call it, trying to chase a ghost or finding a ghost. It's nearly impossible to actually pinpoint the source of an intrusion. But at the very minimum, at the very least, even if that's not possible, for us to know the full scope of damages, we can appropriately cut those areas out and replace them with like and kind new material and seal that and weld that properly. Oftentimes these patches are minimal and tiny, and they really try to do their best to pinpoint the source of the problem. But if you don't actually find the source of the problem, you didn't do anything. It's
Mhm.
the water intrusion still persists, and you just cut and replaced. It's not to say for no purpose, but they're obviously trying to do a good thing. But if you don't fix the source of the problem, you don't fix the problem itself. And if you don't understand the full scope of the area that that problem covers, you'll never be able to get there.
Fair enough. I guess how can you, or who within the organization who is consuming of this data, how will it improve decision making for not only your team internally, but now you're talking about these contractors?
Um, all across everything across the market. So knowing where to spend their efforts is the biggest time and
Okay.
expense. How can these guys be a lot more efficient with what's a candidate, what's not a candidate? Also, another point is just the presentation, the quality of the deliverable. Oftentimes, I mean, contracting is typically a blue collar field, a blue collar land. So the guys who separate themselves with some kind of technological representation of this data, that's easy for the stakeholder that they're trying to convince to render a decision. The easier you make it for them, the easier it's going to be for you to get money. So I'll show you another example just real fast that hits on that point. There
Let's
was a
do
church.
it.
There was a church down here in Lafayette, and the facility manager was our champion. That's what we were shooting for. So the facility manager was the one who said, "Man, we really need to get some kind of thermal scan done on this roof in particular. It's got to be done." And he knew that there were leaks. There have been leaks for about 3 years. And when we showed him the data, we showed him all of the water intrusion, all of the issues, all the areas. He stopped. He said, "I want you to pause. I want you to stop right there." And he went and grabbed the executive pastor who makes the decision. He brought him in. He showed him the map, and he said, "This is what I've been trying to tell you for 3 years. If only I had data to, I've been telling you, but I didn't have anything to prove it. And now this is the proof. If you would have listened to me 3 years ago, we probably wouldn't have ended up in this position with this kind or level of deprecation. But now we have to render a decision. There's something that we've got to do." So data right there tells the story at the end of the day. If a contractor walked up on this roof and told the facility manager, "You've got problems," he already knew there were problems. He needs a way to tell the story to the decision maker. And the easier that you do that, or the easier of a story you provide for that champion, the easier data you give him to back up what he wants to do, which is protect his asset. That's his full job. He's the facility manager. He's got to make sure this place is healthy. The better you make that job for him, the easier you make that job for him, the more likely it is that you're going to get the outcome you want at the end of the day. And that transfers back to here. Using this level of documentation, the level of detail that's provided by Quantum Systems, there's just no other system or solution out there that's going to give you that kind of resolution. And we know that, and I can say that safely because we've used just about every system out there.
Yeah.
We haven't been able to get the resolution needed until these tests and until this point.
So take us, from these photos, we converted them from the raw IIQ file that was the phase one, proprietary format over. So walk us through how these were processed, within your software, and then how the final result with what we're seeing is being used for these contractors.
100% Nick, absolutely. So you guys broke our systems in the best way possible. We had such great resolution. Like we were dealing with 7 MB photos beforehand that came from the Mavic 3 Enterprise, and now every individual frame is about 50 to 52 megabytes coming from the Quantum Systems Trinity Pro, which is awesome. So what that meant is our cloud solutions, our cloud-based solutions just weren't quite cutting it. We basically reached a buffer for just about every other enterprise product for on-cloud processing. That was out there. So instead, we had to switch this one to on-prem solution, on-prem processing. Now, we are working with other cloud providers that are beefing up their capabilities. Very excited to be in talks with those guys, but you need an enterprise level solution to actually process in the cloud. But on-prem using Pix4D, it wasn't a problem. We were able to run segmentation boundaries. So around these roofs, once we got all of those IQQ images processed into a geotiff or an orthomosaic, we separated boundaries out from the roofing material, and then we ran our custom proprietary machine learning models that detected roof damage of a couple of different varieties and types. Now we've developed, like I said, in hand with the public adjusters and independent adjusters, a specialized rating system to help them render decisions, which is based on the type of damage. So there's multiple different classes that actually do carry some weight. Some of them are more just qualitative, some are quantitative. So some of them do matter, some of them don't matter quite as much. But for example, missing shingles, torn and damaged shingles, damaged ridge cap, crease shingles, and granular loss. These are the 5 things we're looking for heavy. And now, thanks to you guys, we're adding in a 6th class, which we weren't able to do before, which is accurate detection of hail hits. That just wasn't possible before. We needed a greater resolution. But now that we have it, we can add that class. So that said, based on the type of damage, based on the quantity of that damage, and based on how concentrated or localized they are together on each of these individual slopes, we have a rating system that normalizes an overall score. So you take the quantity of each of those damages and the scores assigned to each of them, and we basically divide them against an overall score. So you get normalized, like 0 to 100, like we're accustomed to, like A's, B's, C's, D's, F's, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's the same score that we're accustomed to. So just red, yellow, green. Red means it's highly likely to be a filed and won insurance claim based on not only the visual information, but also the non-visual information, which is actually very exciting. Now we're adding in building permit information. So we know, is this wear and tear and this roof is just at the end of its usable life? Or is this way before we should be seeing any kind of wear and tear and depreciation? This is a young roof. It's early on. It shouldn't experience this kind of damage. So based on all those factors together, you get 0 to 100. So where does it fall? And if any of those damage types encounter a significant enough quantity, you'd call that a red trigger. So in this case, for example, we've got 20 that already bypassed our red trigger. So if there's a certain amount of each of those damages across the roof, automatically flagged as a red. And we know that to be true based on the conversations with each of these carriers. If there's enough deprecation, and this is also from the roofing lead gen side, there has to be action taken on that roof no matter what, bar none. Whether that's an insurance claim or whether it's not, this person either needs a new roof or needs some major repair or overhaul. Like somebody's got to go there here no matter what, as soon as possible to help this homeowner.
The footprint of the image. So what I'm able to see in an image, one image compared to the Mavic, at 80 feet, I guess as you scale this up, how do you see that like benefiting like field operation and collection times?
Significantly, because here's the cool part about this. On the roofing lead gen side, we've been working with individual areas that are bite-sized enough for a contractor to handle. But the power of this data is how great can this resolution be employed at scale. So using the Quantum Systems Trinity Pro, I think the 80 mil payload is fantastic. We're probably going to end up switching to the 35 mil payload and flying just a little bit lower for the sake of the benefit of the area coverage. That's what we're really looking to capture. So this area, like you had said, about 100 acres, we're actually, thanks to your system, both the combination of the resolution and the scale at which we're able to capture, we're working with municipalities, with tax assessor authorities and databases that are really interested in this kind of resolution that's never been available at scale. That's the problem that you often find with drone-based solutions. Battery life, one, we can't really fly that long. And at the same time, too, RF, line of sight, all this other stuff, we're not able to get the large area capture that we'd like to. But using the quantum systems, the battery life, the ability to carry a payload for that long, we're working with municipalities to capture not neighborhoods, but cities using this type of technology.
Help the folks understand, like with that calibration certificate, like how, like, beneficial is that to have for this camera specifically because they are metric calibrated?
Exactly right. So we're able to conduct studies that we were not able to do beforehand because this data is highly accurate. So I don't know if, I apologize, I had kind of glossed over that. Not only is it extremely high resolution, but spatially, this is so accurate. So if we're wanting to do any kind of flood zone analyses, any kind of watershed delineation, anything to that effect, anything, I mean, even like boundaries regarding survey work, we're able to give not only a high resolution data set, but a highly accurate data set. So these municipalities, these expansion and planning authorities, anybody and everybody who needs accurate data to make decisions on these roofs or decisions on expansion and planning and construction projects, they're able to use our data to make those kinds of decisions. So rather than just having relative accuracy, we have great absolute accuracy in combination with the resolution that we're working with here, which is, it's kind of the trifecta that you're looking for. It's not just spatial, it's highly spatially accurate, you've got high resolution, and you've got great area coverage. You can't ask for a better solution than that, in my opinion.